After 12 years of shouldering the engineering department, the boss fired me. We can hire 3 juniors for your pay. Months later, when their systems crashed and clients demanded answers, they had to beg me and pay triple just to keep the lights on. They fired me. After 12 years, after countless all-nighters, after saving there, but more times than I can count, my boss looked at me and said I was too expensive. What they didn't know. My silence in that moment wasn't defeat. It was the calm before the storm, the one that would sweep their entire operation into chaos. Honestly, my name is Grant. I'm 58, a senior engineer, and for 12 years, I was the guy you called when everything went sideways. When the alarms blared, the production line seized, and panic started to spread, I was the adult they looked for. I was the one who kept the lights on, literally. But none of that mattered to Vincent. We could hire 3 junior engineers for your salary, he said, his pen clicking, a faint, almost pitying smile on his face. It was like he was talking about bulk screws, not a person. I didn't answer. Just nodded. The silence in that room was thick, heavy. We all knew what it was, not cost-cutting. It was disposal. I mean, I built that engineering department from scratch, out of a storage closet and a drafting table. I was first through the doors at 6 a.m., last to kill the lights around 9 p.m. I never asked for raises because I genuinely thought results were enough. In 2018, when the main pump failed, I stayed 36 hours straight, rigged a hydraulic bypass nobody else dared to touch, and saved them $400,000 in downtime. Last year, the Westport project was a nightmare. Junior engineers were ducking responsibility. The client was ready to walk. I drove out, ran a meeting at 2 a.m. because that was the only time their VP would give me 10 minutes. I found the fix, stabilized the plan, and Westport alone brought in almost $900,000. None of that. Zero of it mattered in that room with Vincent's smug pen clicking. I packed my desk. A photo of Rebecca, my dented thermos, a cheap award ruler, and my notebook, full of calculations, diagrams, my own problem-solving methods. Vincent stood there, already done with me. Nothing personal, Grant, he chirped, just business. I understood. Oh, I understood perfectly, just not in the way he thought. I walked past the people I'd trained, the ones I'd mentored. Nobody said a word. The office sounds, keyboards clacking, a printer humming, felt amplified, like a mockery. Kyle, who I'd taught everything, started to speak, but Vincent shot him a glance, and Kyle practically dove into his monitor. Karen pretended to be on a call. Wade stared at his keyboard like it was a shield. The cowardice was palpable. In my car, the box on the passenger seat, it hit me. I'd never had an afternoon this empty. For the first time in decades, my calendar was just blank. Think about it. There was exactly one engineer in that whole plant who knew where the hidden cable runs between Workshop 2 and Workshop 5 were installed back in '98. Never documented. I traced them by hand during an audit everyone else avoided. I didn't write it down because the place ran on memory, my memory. One engineer who could tell a client no without losing them. Who knew which suppliers delivered and which ones needed constant pressure. Who knew the zone 4 temperature sensors read high. That engineer just left the parking lot. I didn't make a scene. I just left at the right time and let physics work. I drove home at 2:15 p.m. Roads were empty. The wrong time of day to be driving for me. Rebecca's car wasn't in the driveway. She taught art at the community center. She wouldn't be back until 4. I set the box on the table, made coffee, and just waited. Rebecca came in at 4:20. She saw me. She saw the box. So you just left? She asked. I nodded. Didn't even tell them where to shove it? No. She looked at me with that quiet disappointment I'd been collecting for years. What happens next? Rest a bit, I said. Then figure it out. She nodded softly and closed the bedroom door. It stung. I remembered a weekend trip she'd asked for 3 years ago, 2 days at the coast. I'd said I couldn't, a project deadline. She didn't argue. She just stopped asking. I opened my notebook. The pages were worn where my thumb always rested. My work. My methods. The stuff nobody else bothered to learn. And then there was Connor. 24, fresh degree. No experience. Hired 3 months ago, completely outside the normal process. Vincent's pick. Introduced with this proud tone, Connor's going to bring fresh perspective. Fresh perspective, you know what that meant. Connections. Connor got development time. Connor got praise for basic tasks. Great initiative on that tolerance review, Connor. A tolerance review I wrote, which he copied word for word, down to my weird formatting. When I raised risks, I got tone issues. When I said the timeline was physically impossible, I was told to be collaborative. My real job became anchoring Connor, making sure he didn't fail and making sure it looked like he succeeded. Vincent called me into his office. Walk Connor through the Meridian retrofit. Let him present. You want me to do it and let him take credit? I asked. I want you to develop future leadership, he'd said. So, I did it. 8 hours walking him through specs, tolerances, suppliers. At the all-hands meeting, Vincent beamed. Connor found cost-saving opportunities worth about $120,000 over the next year. Exactly the innovative thinking we need. Connor looked profoundly uncomfortable. He didn't correct him. I didn't either. The thing was, I'd emailed those exact savings 3 months earlier. Vincent ignored it then. Connor said it once, and it became genius. After the meeting, Connor tried to speak to me. I cut him off. It's fine. It wasn't. We both knew it. 2 weeks later, Connor specified the wrong material grade on another project. Under thermal load, it would have failed catastrophically. I caught it in review and fixed it quietly. Vincent never knew. That should have been my warning. The next morning, I got an email from my former colleague, Wade. 7:45 a.m. Heard what happened. Everyone's in shock. Nobody saw this coming. Call says Vincent moved fast so you wouldn't have time to do anything. Let me know if you need anything. I let it sit. Instead, I went to the library, the same place where I'd first tackled that production efficiency problem back in 2013. That solution became the foundation for everything I built there. The book was still there, 3rd floor, mechanical engineering section, Formulas for Efficiency in Mechanical Engineering, published 1987. I picked it up, sat at the same window table. I started thinking, not about work, but about what I actually wanted. That evening, Vincent called. 5:17 p.m. Tuesday. I stared at my phone screen. Vincent ringing. I let it ring out. I didn't call back the next day. Or the day after. 3 days later. An email arrived. Friday, 4:32 p.m. Grant, we're having difficulties with the Keystone project. Need your advice. We'll pay. We'd like you to come in briefly. I understand how it looks, but this isn't a request. It's an offer. Keystone. Big contract, complex automation. Without me, they were sinking. They knew it. I could have gone in. Could have taken the money, maybe $175 an hour. Cleared $2,000 in a week. I closed my laptop. Went to wash dishes. Rebecca came into the kitchen, saw me scrubbing the same plate 3 times. Asked if I got that email. I nodded. Asked if I was going to respond. I said no. She nodded. No commentary. But that silence was louder than any words. Next day, Saturday morning, I called Wade. He answered on the first ring. Grant. A beat. Everyone's in shock. Nobody saw it coming. They did, Wade, I said. They just didn't think it'd be me. Wade exhaled slow. It's a disaster here. What happened? Vincent gave Keystone to Connor. I sat up straight. Connor. Yeah. And he's answering technical questions with buzzword synergy, optimization. Wade's voice went thin. Victor stopped calling. He's sending formal complaints now. Escalations. Everything in writing. Good. Wade went quiet. Then there's more. Say it. Vincent offered Kyle your role if he stayed quiet in the layoff meeting. I stared at the table. Kyle took it. Yeah, Wade swallowed. He told me last night. Acting guilty. He's not guilty, Wade. He's scared. Wade hesitated. Grant. I almost warned you. That morning, Vincent was in the hallway. I froze. I didn't answer right away. It wouldn't have changed anything, I said. I'm sorry. I know. Wade tried again, softer. So, what are you going to do? I don't know yet. You going back? No. You going to help them with Keystone? I looked at the phone like it was testing me. No. Okay, Wade said, quiet. Okay. I hung up and sat there with the silence. Kyle's silence was purchased. Wade's was fear. Actually, there's even more to the Kyle thing. HR only let me pack the basics that first day, said I could come back later. When I did, the next week, for the personal files still in my desk drawers, I walked past my old spot. Corner office. Window view. The spot I'd had for 6 years. Kyle was sitting there, a new nameplate already up. He saw me coming and literally turned away, pretending to be on a call. But I saw it. His old desk was in the bullpen. Now he had mine. Benefits of staying quiet. Later that day, I found a business card. Conference in Chicago, 2 years back. Guy from a consulting firm. Vantage Works Consulting. I put it on the table. Opened my laptop. Started to list clients and their quirks, specs, the off-book tolerances, undocumented tweaks. My own methods and failure mode notes saved in my notebooks after the CAD crash in 2021. Northline had a few PDFs, but the real work was in my head and on paper. The fixes nobody wrote down. The bypasses. The hacks. The one mechanical change that saved $90,000. 3 inventions that never even got filed. I opened a blank document and typed, "What actually keeps this company running?" Then I texted Wade, Friday. "I'll bring the notebook." We met Friday evening at Sam's. Old place near the office. Good coffee, burgers that tasted like actual meat. Wade looked older. 52, worked there 16 years. He stood when I walked in, shook my hand firm. We sat. Quiet. The waitress brought coffee without asking, she remembered. I pulled out my notebook. Set it between the salt shaker and the ketchup. Wade leaned closer. Started reading. His face changed as he flipped through pages. Problem-solving approaches I'd developed. Client contacts who dealt with me personally. My own engineering methods that had never been formally documented. Lessons learned from failures. Approaches that worked. He asked if it was still valid. I told him some was outdated. Some of what they were using now was never meant to be final. If they kept pretending it was, it would bite them. Not my problem anymore, I said. He exhaled slow. Asked what I wanted. I want them coming to me, I said. Not out of politeness. Because they need me. Long sip of coffee. Then he said he could help. Had connections at Vantage Works. They'd tried to recruit him 2 years ago. They care about results, he said. The next day, I sent an email using that business card. Short, direct, open to talking. Experience in mechanical engineering, system design, quality control. Can show real examples of solved problems others avoided. Available for contract work or consultation. Grant. Rebecca saw me when I printed it. She was making grilled cheese for lunch. Are you really getting involved in this again? She asked. I told her I'm getting involved in not being silent. She nodded. Set the sandwich in front of me. For the first time in weeks, her look wasn't indifferent. It was understanding. Monday morning, 9:15 a.m. Keystone client wrote to my personal email. The same one I'd given Victor 2 years ago during late-night crisis calls when their previous contractor had ghosted them mid-project. Grant, it read, you're not with Northline anymore, but maybe you can find 15 minutes to talk. We're ready to pay for your time. This is urgent. I met their rep in a neutral conference room, small office building downtown. They didn't want to go back to Northline's office. That said everything. Victor sat down like the meeting had already started. Grant. Victor. No small talk. He slid a tablet across the table. We didn't even know you'd left. Everything fell apart in 1 week. I looked at the screen. My drawing. Big label at the top, draft version 2.3. Preliminary. Not for final use. This, Victor said, is what Northline sent us as final specs. 40% of the components say pending supplier confirmation. Material grades are TBD. We asked your replacement what it meant, and he froze. I zoomed in. My margin notes, my handwriting. This is a draft, I said. I sent it for approach review. Final specs come after your team signs off. Victor's face tightened. Vincent told us it was final. Vincent didn't know what he was looking at. Silence. Heavy. Clean. Victor leaned back. So, what do you want? I'm not with Northline, I said. If I help you, it's direct. No work through them. Separate contract, transparent payment. I choose scope. Victor didn't flinch. Rate, $175 an hour for diagnosis and consultation. Fixed project rates negotiable. He stared at me for a beat, then nodded once. Send terms. I will. We stood, shook hands. Not like businessmen. Like people who were done being played. The next day, I wrote to Wade, if you're still in touch with Vantage Works, put me in contact. Ready to talk. 2 days later, I sat across from Rachel, technical director at Vantage Works. Small office, clean, no corporate art trying to convince you the place had a soul. She'd read my resume. Wade had filled in the parts paper can't carry. We need people who can keep systems running when they fall apart. She said. I'm not a magician, I told her. I've just watched enough things break. Rachel smiled. Like that was the only answer she cared about. Exactly. Project basis. A couple months to start, no strings. What's first? Logistics client. Assembly line keeps jamming. 3 consulting firms couldn't fix it. Timeline, yesterday. I smiled. When do I start? As I walked out, I didn't feel hollow. No rush, no high. Just a sober calm. Back in business. On my terms. When I got home, Rebecca poured tea without a word. Then she said, this is different. This time, you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for yourself. I nodded. And for the first time in a long time, she looked at me like I wasn't a problem she was waiting to outlast. She looked at me like I'd finally woken up. But something else happened that week. Something I'd set in motion without realizing. I'd sent those preliminary drawings to Victor at Keystone months ago. Labeled them clearly, draft version 2.3. Preliminary, not for final use. Standard practice. But Vincent didn't know that. When Victor asked Northline for the updated system specs, Vincent found my old PDF drafts in the shared folder, assumed they were final, and sent them directly to Keystone. No review. No engineering check. Victor's team started asking questions. Connor had no idea what any of it meant. A week after my first Keystone call, I'd done 3 video sessions and 1 on-site. The problem showed itself in the first hour. The control system was fighting the sensor array because someone installed incompatible firmware versions. Classic. The fix wasn't expensive, it just needed someone who knew what to look for. Victor was stunned. On the last call, he said, you saved us 5 weeks and about $180,000 in equipment replacement. What was your old company doing? I shrugged. Selling young and cheap. They asked if they could share my name. Yes, I told them. But don't tie it to Northline. I'm independent. At the same time, Vantage Works dropped my first assignment, a logistics distribution center moving over 50,000 units a day when it worked. When it didn't, it cost $10,000 an hour. Frankenstein equipment from 3 manufacturers, 15 years of patch jobs, and a team of fresh grads who'd never had to diagnose a live system with missing documentation. I didn't chase authority. I watched. Day 1, map the process. 8 hours of observation and notes while everyone begged for a quick fix. Day 2, trace the failure points. 12 small issues compounding under load, critical heat expansion in Zone 7, throwing off sensor alignment, misaligned rollers in Section 12 creating drag, and a timing delay in the control sequence that only showed up at peak throughput. Day 3, apply fixes and explain why they worked. Physics. Mechanics. Control logic. I let them ask questions, treated them like engineers. By day 4, they stopped doubting and started thinking. By day 5, they were taking their own notes. By day 7, they invited me to lunch. Austin asked, why didn't the previous consultants find this? Because they were hunting one big failure, I told him. This was 12 small ones. You only see it if you watch the whole system long enough. Day 9, the director emailed, line is running at 98% uptime. We want a more stable arrangement. Then the old network woke up. Another client from 4 years back asked if I was available. Said I was one of the only people they trusted. Wade called next. Tense. Harding is building a dossier, he said. Court threats, poaching accusations, reputation hits. I told him the truth. I hadn't recruited anyone. I just hadn't stopped adults from making their own choices. Be careful, Wade said. I'm calm. Rebecca sat beside me after I hung up. He going to attack? He'll try. She smiled. Then don't look back. That week, I told her about the VantageWorks deal and the flood of emails. 5 in 2 days. She listened and said, so now you're the one choosing. For once, she was right. The next week filled fast. 2 client calls. And 1 lawyer. Northline's attorney came in, polished and cold. Stop consulting on anything tied to my old work. I told him my contract was done. No drawings, no proprietary files, just experience. This could be intellectual property. Let them prove it, I said. Experience is an IP. 2 days later, VantageWorks offered a 6-month contract. I rewrote the terms: freedom to pick tasks, permission for private work, the right to refuse projects, no non-compete. They agreed. Rebecca went quiet when I told her, then finally said, you're your own boss now. Even if it all blows up tomorrow, you're not one of them anymore. That night, a new email hit my inbox. Briggs and Calder. I called her. We want you to build an engineering department from scratch. We hear you build teams that function. They didn't mention Northline. They didn't have to. 3 months out, and they weren't asking me to come back. They were asking me to rebuild. On my terms. I met Philip from Briggs and Calder in a hotel conference room. Guy in his 40s. Polite but serious. Chief Operating Officer. He said they knew who I was, not from paperwork, but from results. Needed a department that worked, not one for visibility. Effectiveness. Asked if he understood this meant a complete break with Northline. He said they were ready. Had legal support. The main thing was if I was interested. I was, but didn't want to rush. Told him I wasn't building a department for the sake of one. Bringing together people who knew how to do things, but they had to trust me as much as I trusted them. He said they'd give complete autonomy. Main thing was results. He handed me a tablet. Terms. I flipped through. For the first time, someone valued the old craft itself. No nonsense, just essentials. I took a day to think. Told Rebecca everything when I got home. Said they wanted me to start from scratch, my way. She asked if I was afraid. I told her I was just wondering if it was too late. 58 years old, starting over. She put coffee in front of me, sat opposite. She said I wasn't 58. I was someone who lived by other people's rules for decades. Now, my first real year was beginning. Next morning, I signed the preliminary agreement. 2 days later, an email from Diana, former systems analyst from my team. Heard you're building something new. If you need someone who can do more than sit in spreadsheets, I'm here. Then a call from Owen, senior technician. Then from Amber, procurement. They started coming back. Not to me. To what they believed in before Vincent buried it in numbers. Northline stayed silent, but I knew they were watching. I chose the first space myself. A warehouse in a former industrial area, converted to a workshop. Brick, concrete, old beams. 1,500 square feet, high ceilings, loading dock out back. Previous tenant was a metalworking shop. Went under during the pandemic. Landlord desperate. Gave me a good rate. First month, half price. Spent 2 days cleaning. Old oil. Stains. Rust on beams. Didn't matter. It was ours. When Amber came and saw the place, she smiled. This is so you, Grant. Not trendy, but it works. I started putting together the team, one by one. By the end of the month, I had 8 people. Diana from Systems Analysis, quiet, methodical, could organize chaos into clarity. Had worked with me for 6 years at Northline. Left 2 weeks after I did, said she couldn't work for Vincent anymore. Owen from Technical Operations, 50 years old, hands-on guy. Could fix anything mechanical, diagnose anything electrical. Taught himself PLC programming from manuals when Northline wouldn't pay for training. Had been passed over for promotion 3 times. Each time, they gave it to someone younger with a degree but no real experience. Amber from Procurement, sharp negotiator, knew every supplier in the region. Knew who delivered on time and who made promises they couldn't keep. had saved Northline hundreds of thousands by switching suppliers and renegotiating contracts. Never got credit for it. Two others from the old team, Nolan, who'd been in quality control, and Lisa from the test lab. 3 new people through referrals. Wade stayed behind at Northline. Said someone needed to keep an eye on things from the inside. I didn't ask him to. He just did it. Each person had a story. Each person had been overlooked or undervalued somewhere else. Each person wanted to do real work that mattered. We weren't building a company. We were building a team that actually functioned. We started with a small project for Briggs & Calder, reconfiguring a packaging line at their main warehouse. Simple on the outside, hell inside. Everything outdated, patched over patches, zero documentation, equipment from 4 different eras. Conveyor system from the 90s. Control panel from 2005 with buttons so worn you couldn't read the labels. Sensors added piecemeal over years. Motor controllers that didn't match the motors. Wiring that looked like someone's nephew did it over a weekend. Nobody knew how it all worked together anymore. It just did, until it didn't. We spent the first week documenting what existed. Drew diagrams by hand because the electrical schematics were useless. Half the components weren't on drawings. Someone had scrawled notes in marker directly on the panel. Don't touch blue wire. Zone 3 override. Ask Phil. Phil retired 4 years ago. Nobody knew who he was. The previous engineer had made modifications without updating anything, added a bypass here, rerouted a signal there, left no record, just tribal knowledge that walked out the door when he did. I traced every wire, photographed every connection, mapped every sensor, built documentation from scratch. Didn't sleep 3 nights until we found the key weakness, an ancient controller running an unstable protocol. A programmable logic controller from 1997, communicating with newer equipment via adapters stacked 3 deep. Each adapter translating one protocol to another. Each translation introducing delay and error. Like trying to get a rotary phone to talk to a smartphone through 2 different translators who only half understood each other. Technically possible, practically a nightmare. When we replaced it and rewired the line with proper protocols, productivity jumped 26%. Downtime went from 4 hours daily to 20 minutes. Error rate dropped from 11% to under 2%. Briggs & Calder was thrilled. Sent a check for $18,000. The project took 3 weeks. Could have taken 6 months through normal channels. More importantly, they sent a second job the same day. Bigger. Another facility with similar problems. Around that time, I got an unofficial email. Grant, hi. Did you really get a team back together? Hope it's not temporary because I want to leave too. Don't believe in what Vincent's doing anymore. If you're ready, I'm with you. Connor. Connor, the Golden Junior. The connected hire. Vincent put him in my spot after I got fired. Guess he understood now what it meant, being at the top when you actually had to deliver. I didn't reply right away. Official summons arrived Monday. Thick envelope, law firm logo. 3 pages of allegations, breach of employment agreement, poaching personnel, unauthorized use of internal information. I handed everything to the lawyer I found through Briggs & Calder. He flipped through, snorted, said it was a classic pressure attempt. None of the points had evidence. He'd send one hard demand, list exact files, drawings, or trade secrets with dates and proof. Force them to either produce access logs or withdraw quietly. I told him to do it. A week later, Wade called again. Quieter this time. Said Vincent pressured Connor to sign a statement accusing me of poaching and IP misuse. Connor signed it. Vincent coached the whole thing. Connor is freaking out now, Wade said. He did. I forwarded the message to my lawyer, then went back to work. But something else was happening. There was someone at Northline who didn't like Vincent. A senior operations director named Franklin. A guy who valued results over politics. When Keystone started having problems, Franklin started asking questions. Not publicly. Quietly. Franklin pulled access logs during an internal investigation. Saw someone accessing old project files late at night. Saw the file history showed preliminary drafts being sent as final specs. Franklin didn't say anything to Vincent, just documented it. Waited. Through proper channels during the investigation. Those access logs found their way to my lawyer. An IT security analyst named Morgan had flagged them for compliance review. Device identity. Timestamp. File list. Someone pulling my old PDF drafts at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, using old permissions that should have been revoked. My lawyer filed them with our response. Said nothing else. In the second week after launching the operation, the first real problems started. One of Keystone's contractors delayed delivery 10 days. At another site, conflict between two engineers over sensor array implementation. Diana rushed there. 6 hours of mediation. A third site had a power supply issue. The breaker kept tripping. Owen drove 4 hours to troubleshoot. Grounding problem from an installation done wrong 15 years ago. I felt familiar weight returning to my shoulders. That pressure that once brought me to my knees. That feeling of being responsible for everything. Rebecca found me at 2 a.m., poring over drawings any of 3 new specialists could have looked at. "You're taking everything on yourself again," she said. "If something goes wrong, it's my project." "No," she countered, "it's your project." "Or are you alone again?" Her words hit hard. Next day, I assembled the team. "Starting today, I'm not touching current tasks. I'll stay coordinator and mentor, not executive. Someone fails, it's a lesson. They succeed, it's a result. Either case, I trust you." Everyone was silent. Then Owen said, "So now we're not just working with you. We're a team." While we grew, Vincent didn't sleep. A week after I ignored his threat email, an article appeared in a trade magazine, supposedly anonymous, about how a certain former engineer was using old connections to poach clients. I contacted the editor. "If you publish anonymous letters, publish facts too. Come visit. I'll show you how we work." A journalist arrived 3 days later. A woman named Sarah, mid-30s, sharp eyes. She spent 12 hours with us, from early line start to evening dinner with the team. Watched Owen troubleshoot a sensor calibration. Watched Diana coordinate with 3 different suppliers. Watched the whole team work through a problem nobody had seen before, a temperature regulation system failing intermittently. Took us 4 hours to find it. Bad ground connection. Simple fix once you knew where to look. Sarah took notes the whole time, asked good questions. Then talked to Amber, Owen, even Rebecca. A week later, the article published. "When honest work conquers fear, the story of an engineer who left and built his own business." It opened with the anonymous hit piece, then systematically dismantled it with facts, timeline of clients who reached out, documentation of contracts signed, numbers showing real results. It ended with one line, "Sometimes the best revenge is building something that works." After publication, we got 27 emails. 14 from customers who once worked with Northline. 8 from engineers asking if we were hiring. 3 from suppliers. 2 from investors. And 1 from someone I didn't expect. "Grant, I read it. Sorry I didn't stand up for you back then. I was wrong. If you're willing to talk, I have something you should see." Kyle. The same Kyle, sitting in that meeting when I got fired. But he did something else. He attached an email chain. Showed Vincent planning the layoff 2 weeks in advance. Showed Vincent specifically targeting me. Showed the timeline manipulation. Receipts. Not just an apology, but evidence. The legal pressure wasn't over. Northline sent another cease and desist, accusing me of using internal information, unauthorized access, trade secret misappropriation. My lawyer responded with one hard demand: list exact files, drawings, or trade secrets with dates and proof. Your client must produce access logs, file histories, and internal emails. We will request full discovery if this proceeds. Northline went quiet for 3 days. Then their lawyer withdrew the claim. Short letter. After internal review, company has decided not to pursue this matter further. Translation. They couldn't prove anything without exposing their own mess. But there was one more thing that happened around this time. Small thing, but it meant something. Rebecca had her Tuesday evening art class. Never missed it. She'd been teaching the same group of seniors for 3 years. I had a client meeting scheduled for 6 p.m. on a Tuesday. Vantage Works wanted me to present our approach for a potential major contract. Big deal. Needed prep. Came home Monday night. Rebecca was at the kitchen table. I canceled tomorrow's class. What? Why? You need someone to help you prep that presentation. You're good at engineering, terrible at PowerPoint. I said she didn't have to do that. I know I don't have to, she said. I want to. We spent Tuesday afternoon working through the slides. She reorganized the whole thing. Made it actually make sense. Made it tell a story instead of just listing facts. Next day, the client signed. That was when I knew she wasn't just watching anymore. She'd chosen. For months after I left, Keystone sent a written requirement to Northline. Subject line in the procurement email read, Urgent Technical Accountability Requirement. Response required by end of business day. The body was one sentence. Name one accountable technical lead with decision authority and on-call availability by 1700 hours today. Wade texted me minutes after it landed. They're pulling everyone into a room. Vincent looks panicked. Vincent staged a proof call. Had replacement juniors on the line, Connor, Kyle, Karen. Had management stacked, Director of Engineering, VP of Operations. Vincent coached them beforehand for 3 hours. Gave them buzzwords, told them to sound confident, told Connor specifically to lead the answers. Rehearsed responses, practiced deflection, prepared talking points about leveraging synergies and optimizing deliverables. Nobody prepared them for actual technical questions. Keystone's engineering team joined the call at 2 p.m. sharp. Victor, their QA lead named Patricia, their facility manager. For people who actually knew the system. Victor started simple, professional, calm. Asked them to confirm current system status and timeline. Connor jumped in with all the buzzwords Vincent taught him. Leveraging synergistic approaches, optimizing integration timelines, maintaining quality standards. Victor paused. 3 seconds of silence. Can you complete the current phase without redesigning the sensor array? Yes or no? Connor hesitated, looked at Vincent off camera, said, yes, absolutely. We can maintain current design parameters. Victor asked why the preliminary specs they sent showed pending supplier confirmation on 40% of components. Silence. Connor froze. Stammered something about standard processes. Victor cut him off. They were labeled preliminary. Draft version 2.3. Not for final use. We needed actual specifications. Due 6 weeks ago. Carl tried to jump in, started talking about coordinating with supply chain, confirming parameters align with requirements. Victor's voice went flat. Cold. Told them to stop. Connor said yes, you could complete without redesign. Carl just said you were still coordinating parameters. Which was it? More silence. Vincent interrupted, started talking about full confidence. Victor shut him down. Said he was asking the engineers to answer, told Vincent to let them speak. Connor and Kyle looked at each other, both silent. Victor asked something simpler. The hidden cable runs between Workshop 2 and Workshop 5, installed in '98. You asked about unexplained signal loss between those buildings last month. Where are the runs located? Connor blinked. Said they'd need to pull the documentation. Victor said, there is no documentation. That's why I asked Grant, originally, and he showed me. Asked again, do you know? Connor said they could research it. The client on line 3 is calling because their system is down. They need someone who can make decisions now, not research. Decide. Can you do that? Nobody answered. Victor's tone changed. Final. Send the name of your accountable engineer by end of day, or we're terminating this contract. He ended the call. Vincent tried calling back. Went to voicemail. Wade texted, Vincent is yelling at IT for the logs. 3 hours later, Victor emailed me directly. Neutral tone. Urgent. Said he needed 15 minutes. Met him next day. Neutral ground. I brought 1 page. Terms. Direct contract. Transparent payment. Fixed scope. No work through Northline. I choose tasks. Victor read it. Signed it. Said they were sending Northline a final choice. Officially subcontract my team under their terms, or lose the contract. 2 days later, Keystone sent the official choice to Northline procurement. Subject line, contract continuation terms. Subcontractor requirement. Vincent refused. Tried one last pressure move. Called their VP. Threatened legal action. Keystone walked. Awarded the contract to me and Vantage Works as a joint venture. Me as technical lead. Northline learned via procurement notice. Short, formal. Contract terminated for failure to meet technical accountability requirements. Awarded to alternate vendor effective immediately. Wade texted, Vincent just got called into Franklin's office. Compliance is with them. I archived it. Rebecca showed up at the warehouse the morning the contract was awarded. I was reviewing site assignments with the team. She walked in with a tablet and a printed schedule, set them on the table, and started restructuring. Who goes to which site? Who's on call? Delivery windows, client communications. Within an hour, she had it organized, color-coded, clear. 15 minutes later, a client showed up unexpectedly. Wanted an immediate meeting. Rebecca handled it smooth. He's in site review. You have 15 minutes with the right engineer now, or a full hour at 1,800 tomorrow. The client took the 15 minutes. Got exactly what they needed. I was at the warehouse late afternoon. Team unloading gear for tomorrow's deployment. Owen came over. We start at 6 tomorrow. We start at 6, I confirmed. My phone rang. Vincent. I looked at it. Picked up the dented thermos from the workbench, took a sip of cold coffee, flipped the phone face down. A week later, I got an email from Wade. Subject line, you should know. Body was short. Franklin called an emergency review. Vincent's on administrative leave pending investigation. They found access logs, draft specs sent as final, coached statements. All of it. Compliance is involved. I forwarded it to my lawyer for records. Then went back to work. A week later, an official letter arrived. Not to me, to Briggs and Calder, copied to Keystone, Northline's lawyer. Withdrawing all claims. Short, formal. After comprehensive internal review, company withdraws all allegations and requests against Mr. Grant. We recognize no violations occurred. My lawyer sent one line back, acknowledged. Connor showed up at the warehouse next morning early, before anyone else. He had an envelope. Handed it to me. Inside was a letter addressed to my lawyer. Retracting his coach statement. Explaining Vincent's pressure. Explaining what actually happened. Signed, dated, notarized. I know I messed up, he said. This is everything I remember. Everything he told me to say. Everything that actually happened. I looked at him. You're here to work? Yeah. Then work. We'll talk later. He nodded. Went to his station. Rebecca came in at 8, tablet in hand. Started coordinating client calls, rescheduling site visits. By 9, we were running. The delivery truck arrived at noon. Equipment, materials, everything on schedule. I stood at the loading dock, watched Owen directing the unload. Watched Diana checking inventory. Watched Amber coordinating with the driver. Watched Rebecca at the desk, phone to her ear, scheduling next month's site rotation. Watched Connor in the corner, actually working, learning. Vincent texted my phone, we should talk. I looked at it. Set the phone down. Picked up my notebook, opened to tomorrow's schedule. Started planning. 2 days later, Wade texted, Vincent resigned, effective immediately. Franklin's memo cited policy violations. The board accepted it. He was gone. I read it twice. Then deleted it. That afternoon, Keystone Procurement emailed, subject, vendor performance recognition. They praised our technical leadership and accountability, response time, problem resolution, system stability. The standard we expect. I forwarded it to the team. Anyway, we start at 6 a.m. tomorrow. So, what do you think? Have you ever had to walk away from a bad situation, only to find it was the best thing you could have done for yourself? Or seen something you built crumble after you left? I really want to know your stories. Let me know in the comments below.